Every year, my husband's family left me home babysitting all their kids while they had their annual family gathering. This year, I hired a babysitter and followed them. They were at a casino. Posted to r/true off my chest. I want to start by telling you that I gave this 3 years before I did anything about it. 3 years is long enough that I cannot be accused of overreacting to a single incident. 3 years is long enough that a pattern has established itself so thoroughly that it has its own name in my household. My husband Dominic calls it the family weekend. His mother calls it the annual gathering. His sisters call it our tradition. And the tradition, in each of its 3 iterations, has ended with me alone in a house with between 4 and 7 children under the age of 11 while every adult member of Dominic's family went somewhere together and did not tell me where. I want to be precise about the numbers because I think the numbers are important. Year 1, 5 children, ages 3 through 9. Year 2, 4 children, ages 2 through 10. Year 3, 7 children. Someone had a new baby. Someone's cousin visited with her too. Ages 11 months through 11 years. My children are not among them. Dominic and I do not have children. The children belong to his sisters Bria and Celine, his brother Terrence, and in year 3, an assortment of extended family members. I am not their mother. I am not their regular caregiver. I am their aunt by marriage, which is a warm and real relationship I have with most of them, and which had been for 3 years running, the relationship that made me the logical choice to manage a small village of children while the adults went somewhere fun. The gathering, the real one, the adult one, was always framed as a family tradition that predated me. Dominic mentioned it when we were dating before we were married. His family did an annual weekend together, just the core family, and it was something they had been doing since his parents started it years ago. He said it with the fond, uncomplicated warmth of someone describing a family custom they value. I did not think to ask whether spouses were included. The answer, as I discovered when we were first married, was that spouses were not. The tradition was for blood relatives only. His mother Paulette explained this to me in the gentle, apologetic tone of someone delivering a policy rather than making a choice, as if the tradition had been handed down from a higher authority and was simply the way things were. I accepted this the first year. We had been married 8 months. I did not want to be the new wife who created friction over family traditions. I watched Dominic pack an overnight bag. I asked if he needed anything, and I spent a Saturday managing 5 children in a house that was not mine while the adults in his family did whatever they did. That night, alone with 5 children and a pizza I had ordered because no one had left me information about what the children ate, I texted Dominic to ask when they would be back. He said tomorrow afternoon. I asked how the gathering was going. He said great, really relaxing, and sent a photo of what appeared to be a nice dinner out. I thought, a nice dinner out. Together. Without me. I filed it. I did not act on it. I told myself it was 1 year, and some traditions were complicated. Year 2 was the same. Different children, same structure. Dominic packing a bag, a warm goodbye, a day and a half alone with small people who needed feeding and managing and entertaining while somewhere at a nice dinner his family relaxed. I asked Dominic afterward, as carefully as I could, whether spouses ever joined the gathering. He said it was really a thing for blood family, that his parents had started it as a way to stay connected as siblings, that he hoped I understood. I said I understood. I asked if he understood that I had spent a day and a half managing other people's children without being asked or compensated or apparently considered. He apologized. He said he hadn't thought about how it landed for my side. He had not fixed it by year 3. Year 3 was announced in the usual way. His mother called in early September to let everyone know the dates, Dominic told me, and I felt the specific, familiar weight of knowing what those dates meant for me settling into my chest. I said to Dominic, I'm not doing it again. He said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not going to be left at home managing all the children while your entire family goes somewhere together. I've done it twice. I'm not doing it a 3rd time. He said, it's a tradition. Spouses don't. I said, then figure out childcare. Your family can hire someone, or the parents can take turns staying with the children, or the children can go to the gathering. But I'm not the default childcare solution 3 years in a row. Dominic said he would talk to his family. He talked to his family. His mother called me and said she understood my position and appreciated how much I'd helped the previous years, and that they would figure something out for childcare. What they figured out was that I was still the most logical person to watch the children because I would be home anyway, and perhaps they could pay me this time. I said, "That's not what I meant." His mother said she wasn't sure what else to suggest. I said, "I have a suggestion. I'll arrange my own plans for that weekend, and you can arrange childcare separately." She said she would discuss it with the family. 2 weeks later, Dominic told me the family had decided the children would be fine with me for the day, just the day this year rather than overnight, and they were very grateful. I said, "I didn't agree to that." He said, "It's one day." I said, "That's not the point." He did not understand the point. Or he understood it and had decided his family's comfort was the higher priority. Either way, the arrangement remained unchanged, and I was looking at another Saturday managing 7 children in a house while his family went somewhere. So I arranged a babysitter. Her name was Jess. She was 22, she had excellent references, she charged $18 an hour, and she was available for a Saturday. I booked her for 8 hours. I told Dominic I had made arrangements to be out that day and that Jess would be there for the children. He said, "You're not serious." I said, "I'm very serious." He said, "My family is expecting you to." I said, "Your family made an assumption without my agreement." I did not agree to watch 7 children. "I have made other plans." He said, "What plans?" I said, "Personal plans." My plans were to find out where his family actually went. I want to explain the decision to follow them because I know how it sounds and I want to be honest about my reasoning. I had asked, across 3 years, where the gathering was. I had received vague answers. A family place. A spot they'd been going to for years. Out of town a bit. The vagueness had bothered me from the first year, but I had not pushed on it because I had told myself I was being paranoid, that a family having a tradition in a private location was entirely normal, that my discomfort with being excluded was my issue to manage. By year 3, the vagueness had accumulated enough to feel like a choice rather than an oversight. People who are going somewhere innocuous name the place when their spouse asks. The repeated deflection was information, and I had been ignoring information for 3 years. Jess arrived at 9. I left at 9:15, 20 minutes after Dominic and his brother Terrence had departed to collect the rest of the family. I had noted the direction Dominic drove from our window. I followed at a distance. They stopped to collect Bria, then Celine, then drove for about 40 minutes out of town on a route that would not have taken them to any of the vague descriptions I had been given, not a family property, not anything I associated with a gathering. They pulled into a parking lot. The parking lot was at the Riverside Grand Casino and Resort. I sat in my car for a moment. Then I took a photograph of the building. Then I parked and went inside. They were at the blackjack tables. All of them. Dominic, his parents, Bria, Celine, Terrence. His mother had a drink. His father was laughing. Dominic was leaning over the table in the relaxed, focused way of someone doing something he enjoys and is not thinking about anything else. I stood at the edge of the floor for about 3 minutes. Then I walked over to the table. Dominic saw me first. His face went through a sequence I will not soon forget. Surprise, confusion, something that was unmistakably guilt even before he had fully registered why. His mother looked up. His sisters. His father. I said, "Nice gathering." Nobody said anything. I said because I could not help it and because it was the truest sentence available. "I have a babysitter at home managing 7 children so your whole family can play blackjack." His mother said, "Naomi," I said, "I'm not staying. I just wanted to see it." I looked at Dominic. "We're going to have a very long conversation when you get home." I left. I drove home in a state of feeling several things at once, which I want to name accurately. I was angry. Obviously, deeply, the specific rage of someone who has been excluded and managed and lied to by omission for 3 years, while also providing unpaid labor for the benefit of the people doing the excluding. That anger was real, and I am not going to minimize it. I was also, underneath the anger, something that felt like clarity. The particular clarity of having confirmed something you suspected, and no longer having to wonder. I had wondered, across 3 years, whether I was being paranoid, whether the vagueness was innocent, whether my discomfort was disproportionate. I was no longer wondering, and I was embarrassed for myself, which I know is an uncomfortable thing to admit. Not ashamed. I had done nothing wrong, but embarrassed in the way of someone who has been overly trusting for too long and is now looking at the evidence of it. 3 years. A casino. I had watched their children while they gambled, and I had done it twice before, without even knowing. I sat with Jess and the children for the rest of the afternoon, which was in some ways the most clarifying part of the day, because Jess was perfectly competent and the children were fine, and none of this had ever required me specifically. It had required a willing adult. I had been the willing adult by default, year after year, because I had allowed myself to be. Dominic came home at 7. He came home alone. His family had not come back with him, which told me he had spent part of the afternoon managing the fallout from my appearance before managing me. He said, "I should have told you." I said, "Yes." He said, "It started before we got married, and the casino thing, it's what the weekend became, and we didn't want it to seem like we were choosing gambling over family, so." I said, "So you told me it was a family tradition and left me with the children, so I wouldn't ask questions." He said, "It was easier." I said, "Easier for who?" He was quiet. I said, "Dominic. I have spent 3 years being excluded from a family event, managing other people's children without agreement or compensation, receiving vague non-answers when I asked where you were going. And the reason was that you wanted to go to a casino without your wife knowing. Is that an accurate summary?" He said, "When you say it like that." I said, "Is it accurate?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Then I need you to understand that this is not a conversation about the casino. I don't care about the casino. You can gamble. That's your choice to make. This is a conversation about the fact that your family found it acceptable to involve me as a childcare solution while actively concealing where you were going from me. That is the thing I need you to understand is not okay." He said, "You're right." I said, "I know I'm right. What I need to know is what you're going to do about it." What he did was have the harder conversation with his family that he had been avoiding. His mother called me 2 days later. Not with the apologetic policy delivery tone from before. She said, "I want to apologize properly. What we did was not fair to you, and I knew it wasn't fair, and I let it continue because it was convenient, and that was wrong." I received that. It was the fullest apology available under the circumstances. I said, "Thank you. I want to be included, or I want to be genuinely excused, not managed into a corner and given a task. I can accept that there are family traditions that don't include me. I cannot accept being used as a resource while the use of me is obscured." She said, "That's fair." His sisters called. Similar conversations, varying degrees of directness. Terrence sent a text that said "my bad," genuinely, which I found, in its brevity, oddly more sincere than the longer calls. Dominic and I spent 3 weeks in the more difficult work of the conversations between us. Not the casino, not the babysitting, but the thing underneath, that he had repeatedly chosen his family's comfort over my inclusion and my dignity and had told himself it was easier, which is the accounting of a person who has been treating one party in a relationship as less negotiable than the other. We are still working on that. It is not resolved. It is at least being named, which it had not been before. Next year's gathering, if there is one, will either include me or it will not involve me as childcare. Those are the options on the table. His mother has said she understands that. Dominic has said he understands that. I have said that if they go to the casino, I would like to be invited, because I have never been to a casino and it sounds like a perfectly decent way to spend a Saturday, and I am apparently the only adult in this family who has not found that out. His father laughed when Dominic told him I said that. Good. Let him laugh. I have 3 years of babysitting and a 40-minute drive's worth of evidence that I can find the funny side of things when the situation is finally honest enough to have one.